Hello my friends and welcome back. It is Friday. You know what that means? That means you and I, we made it. We survived this week. Recently, a very information communication was published. The official Ukrainian plan to victory. This is not just any other document, any other talk of how the war should end. This is the plan of what the Western powers should consolidate themselves behind. This is the Ukrainian victory plan, and we'll go through analyzing all of its 5 major key points. Zelensky presented a plan for Ukraine's victory in the Verkhovna Rada. The plan consists of 5 points and 3 secret annexes. The first point is to invite Ukraine to NATO. The second is defense. The third is deterrence. The fourth is strategic economic potential. And the fifth point is designed for the post-war period. Now let's go through one by one. This is a clear pathway of what Ukraine sees would bring them peace and would bring them to the end of the war in their terms. This is pretty much a plan to Russia's defeat, if the West should accept it. First point is to invite Ukraine to NATO now. This will be a sign of determination and show how partners see Ukraine in the security architecture. I do agree with this, inviting Ukraine into NATO right now as a country actively in war. It's unfortunately impossible according to NATO doctrines that you cannot accept a country which is actively in war into NATO. But if NATO would do that, that would trigger an all-out conflict with Russia, because then a NATO power would be in war and invaded by Russia. I don't think the Western powers will do that. Although, according to this victory plan, yes, that would end the war with Russia's defeat. The second point is defense. We need to increase our own production as well as increased aid from Western partners. Operations in certain places to prevent buffer zones in Ukraine, withdrawal of air defenses, joint shooting down a Russian aircraft with partners, increased use of Ukrainian drones and missiles, and removal of restrictions on the use of weapons. Access to allied intelligence. So pretty much defense point is all about maximizing the cooperation between Western militaries and Ukrainian military, also within Ukraine. So Western powers would shoot down Russian drones and planes. Western powers, if Ukraine, would be accepted into NATO, then Western powers would send troops and more material, weaponry to Ukraine, because it would be Article 5 immediately triggered. So it would be NATO's all-out war against Russia, which again, I will say it would result the defeat of Russia in a few days, I would say, unless they use a nuclear weapon. So that's why I think the NATO powers will not accept Ukraine into NATO. The third is deterrence of the Russian Federation. Ukraine proposes to host a comprehensive, non-nuclear strategic deterrence package on its soil, which would be sufficient to protect Ukraine from any military threat from Russia. Deterrence is one of the key elements in cancelling any war, or sorry about my English here, making sure the enemy doesn't attack you. One of the best ways to do that is to have a massive military. Now, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, 3 Baltic countries, right? Russian military in the paper should be able to just roll through us, steamroll us. But the price for that has been driven so much up by us, by the Baltics, that Putin really is thinking twice about it. Estonia has never cancelled conscription. We have had it from day one, ever since 1991, when we got re-independence. Conscription, mandatory. All of Estonian male population have been trained in case of war. Same with the Finnish. Latvia, Lithuania, they went on and off with their conscription, but they're bringing it back now. Meaning all Baltic countries, which would be one united front if Russia would attack, have a massive male population that is ready to protect their countries, driving up the cost of war for Russia tenfold. And Russia cannot use a nuclear weapon in the Baltics. No way, because it is so close to St. Petersburg, like very close. 2 hours drive. Nuclear weapons are off. You gotta use conventional means, but we got a lot of manpower that is ready to fight. Fourth point is economic. Peace through economic strength and pressure on Russia. In particular, limiting oil prices and exports. developing Ukraine's strategic economic potential, and strengthening sanctions. Now, this point is very important because no one ever has yet touched eastern Ukrainian resources that are in the ground. Yes, Russia has been, and the Soviets have been excavating coal from eastern Ukrainian towns, which are like coal mining towns. But there are many trillions of dollars worth of rare earth metals in the soil of eastern Ukraine that no one has touched. They're still there. There's a lot of gas, natural gas, hundreds of billions worth. There's so much in the ground there that if Ukraine in the future focuses on that, they would become an economic powerhouse of the European area. The fifth point is post-war. After the war, we will have one of the most experienced military contingents. People who have military experience with international weapons. This is a guarantee of security in Europe. This is a worthy mission for our heroes. After the war is over, the Ukrainian military can apply its experience to strengthen NATO and European defenses and will be able to replace the United States contingent. So this is a very interesting point, with everything going on internally in the US and a lot of the population being swayed that the United States-led system in the world should not be prominent anymore. Because United States, why should they pay for European security? Well, they shouldn't. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of effort. We can do it on our own, and Ukraine will be the key to that. Ukraine and Poland together. They will be the strongest military countries in Europe in the next 20, 30 years. The strongest by a great margin. They will be the center pillar of European strategic deterrence and European military capabilities. Their troops will train every other military in Europe. And I do agree that we should not rely so much on the United States because we can do it on our own. Europe is a powerful, powerful entity, European Union. The urgency of the victory plan is right now. If we start implementing the victory plan now, we may be able to end the war no later than next year. Now, I hate to report this, but this is the truth. Right now, as I see it, as part of NATO and democratic Estonia, as a country, I'm a part of that, and I see it. There is no way NATO accepts Ukraine into NATO when active war is going on with Russia. This would, number one, trigger an immediate all-out war with NATO and Russia. This is something that Russia doesn't want, and this is something that NATO doesn't want. So this is not going to happen, and this was point one. It is a good plan in a sense that if NATO would actually do it, yes, the war would be over and Russia would lose. But I don't see it in any way happening, unfortunately. This is the reality on the ground. My friends, I want to introduce you to Ground News, the #1 news comparison site in the world. Today we're going to take a look at this piece of news. Zelensky will present his Ukraine victory plan to Western leaders, but Biden meeting is postponed. What do we see on the Ground News page of this specific article? We see the coverage details on the right, 82nd different sources, which means there's plenty of sources to go around. Bias distribution is 43% center, and you can see it visualized right here on the chart. 34% left-leaning and 23% right-leaning. If you wish to read, for example, more centrist news to be more balanced, you need tools like Ground News to recognize which articles and which titles are leaning left or right. We have the factuality, of course. 60% of the sources are high factuality, 37% are mixed factuality. Anything below high factuality, I wouldn't even read. Of course, there's the ownership chart right here to tell who is owning the news platform, aka what might be their agenda. Here we can see all of the sources, and when I scroll down, I see different news outlets using different titles and where are they leaning, right or left. With the wording in the titles, I can already compare what titles, for example, the left side uses and what title the right side uses, because the wording already makes a big difference. I can also go and click For You tab, because Ground News actually has my own personalized interests tab here, and there's Ukraine and Ukraine war. I click on Ukraine war, seeing all of the news only talking about this specific topic, so I don't waste my time finding what I want to read. Compare news coverage, spot media bias, avoid algorithms. Try Ground News today and get 40% off your subscription by going to ground.news/Artur. Thank you Ground News for sponsoring today's video. Now my friends, 1 year ago Zelensky did his famous interview and I want to watch it, it's like 40 seconds, but he's one of the very first presidents.
Thank you so much. Before you go,
let's
if
watch
you
it.
want to share, what keeps you going? Do you ever feel defeated?
I have a lot of power, but even feeling strong and have a lot of energy, it doesn't mean that we want to fight all our life, because the price is high, like I said, because the war takes the best of us, the best heroes, the best men, women, children. That's it. But we are not ready to give our freedom to this terrorist Putin.
He says it how it is. Even I cannot say it because I'm on YouTube and my platform does not allow it. I cannot say both of these words. I cannot say the T word and the F word. But he said it, and I'm glad he did, because I stand by every last word he said. My friends, look at this. This is Sverdlikova. Now it is a Russian village, a Russian settlement in Kursk, in their country. Ukrainians don't even have that much ammunition to do this to a village. This is Russians themselves. They are started using a scorched earth tactic like they use in everywhere else. And what it means to modern Russian military is bombarding every last house to zero so they could roll in with BTRs and tanks. And if they can't, they will continue bombarding. This is them bombarding their own villages and settlements, so Ukrainians couldn't hide in them and the troops couldn't set up defensive positions in them. It shows how much they care about their own people. They don't. In this video, my friends, we will see a new Russian body armor issued to tens of thousands of Russian soldiers and how it holds up to a field test. This is a well-known monolith that is given to all going to the war. Okay, correction, it's given to all, according to this soldier. All of Russian soldiers get this body armor, monolith. I shot the first plate, just for understanding, and this is the second one. And it talks a lot, I don't want to take up your time, so I'm going to fast forward. You can see, class I cannot read this stuff. Well, you know, fastens it to the tree, puts it to the test. Let's find out if the plate armor that the Russian Ministry of Defense gives us really protects us. Goes back a few feet, shows that the bullets are real. I mean, of course they're real, what the hell. And bada boom, shoots 5 shots into the plate. Let's go and see the result. And we have 5 perfect little holes in the plate. That was what, about 15 meters, 10 meters. This should defend against this kind of fire, Kalashnikov fire in 10 meters. The body armor should defend against it. Otherwise, what's the point of wearing it? If this shot comes through, then a shrapnel will come through, which at some point can fly even faster than the bullet. This body armor given to, according to him, now hundreds of thousands of Russian troops is a scam. Why? Well, Russians definitely have the capability to make a body armor that holds bullets. But if you're the owner of the factory who makes these by the contract of Russian Ministry of Defense by hundreds of thousands of them, you can get hundreds, well, maybe tens of millions of USD if you change the mixture to a cheaper metal, to thinner metal. If you don't do it according to the standard, you can get tens of millions and steal it. So this is pretty much corruption and theft from the factory and from the procurement officers, and in the end the soldier pays with his life. Here, my friends, again we are on a Russian front line, Russian units, and these, as you can understand already, are not soldiers, they're dummies. I have not seen this before. I have not seen Ukrainians using them, But here we can see Russians using them. I don't really understand why, because I mean everybody knows that one of Russia's main tactics is meat wave attacks with scorchers policy, meaning throwing away manpower to soak up Ukrainian ammunition is one of their only tactics that brings them any kind of movement and success. So usually you would assume that dummies are being used by militaries that are lacking manpower. I mean Russia, I'm surprised that they are using these dummies. They have men, especially now North Korean men also, but they are. This is a video from the front. I guess they want to soak up even more Ukrainian mortar fire and sniper fire and drones. I mean, drones will understand that this is not a real man because of the heat signature and all of that. But I can see how Ukrainian mortar crews can direct some fire at these dummies, wasting a few rounds at least. We will yet to see the real effectiveness of these dummies. Now, my friends, we have entered 1939 and Molotov Ribbendrop Pact was just signed. Yes, Putin and Xi have just signed a partnership pact. Russia agrees to support China's goals in Taiwan. China agrees to support Russia's goals in Ukraine. Jointly, they condemn the United States. China officially a partner of Russia in the war in Ukraine. Before, I know China has been supporting Russia with almost everything secretly, but officially and publicly, Chinese diplomats up until this point were always supporting Ukrainian territorial integrity publicly. I know how the game goes, actually they support Russia, but now Xi came out of the closet and actually publicly changed the doctrine, endorsing Russian occupation of Ukraine. This is a big change, and this is the Molotov-Ribbendrop Pact of the new axes of evil, Russia and China, and with their allies, North Korea and Iran. This is very reminiscent of the Molotov-Ribbendrop Pact between Stalin and Hitler in 1939, which eventually paved the way to World War II. Meanwhile, people in the West are getting tired of the war in Ukraine. Well, just wait until the war comes to your doorsteps. Then you will not be tired. And if you are feeling tired, my friends, I understand feeling tired, not good way to feel. Imagine what the Ukrainians feel. And connected to this topic, as I said many times, I see one war, three conflicts. One world war which is starting or going on, or this is the slow advancement of this process towards World War III, and people think, World War III, nuclear weapons, da-da-da. My friends, no. If you look at World War II also, there was years of preparation for it. Every one small step, Hitler taking the Rhineland, Anschluss, remilitarizing their armies, all of this took years. And this was the prelude to 1939. We are also at this step right now. Now China publicly supports Russia. This is yet another small step towards this one date, which in the future will be set as World War III began on this date. And invasion of Ukraine was the war before the World War. Well, in my eyes, how I see it right now, I'm going to cut all the preludes and everything. This is World War III, and it shows itself as symptoms of three conflicts. Russia-Ukraine, Israel-Iran, and China-Taiwan. Now, China-Taiwan is the only of these three conflicts which is not in the hot phase right now. Two of them are, and China-Taiwan will be also. But connected to this, connected to North Korea actually. This means Kim Jong-un has sent some of his slaves to fight in Ukraine in exchange for payment from Putin. North Korea has sent 10,000 soldiers to Russia, Western sources say. And per soldier, monthly wage from Russia to North Korea is $2,000. The DPRK soldiers and their families don't see any of this money, only the Kim family does. 10,000 soldiers times $2,000 per month equals $20 million a month in payment. That's a lot of Hennessy cognac and Kobe steaks for the big guy. Yeah, because we all know that Kim Jong-un loves cheese, cognac and steaks. He loves to eat good. He's a little bit chubby, So this money will go to the Kim family. In North Korea, and for the Kim family, $20 million is a massive amount. per month. For Russia, 10,000 troops from North Korea is something they can work with. So for Russia and for North Korea, for them, it's a win-win contract. For Ukraine, if the Western powers do not react to it as you would thought 1 or 2 years ago. Let's go back. Let's play this game. It's 2000, let's say 18, 19, Donald Trump is president, let's say. Somebody says that Russia is going to invade Ukraine with 10,000 North Korean troops in addition to 600,000 of their own troops. Anybody almost would say, okay, this is almost an act of declaration to NATO and to America. Now this happens, we almost don't see any Western response. I mean, this is a declaration of war from North Korea to Ukraine. In the modern world, nobody declares war. There are no declarations of war almost ever, some cases only. In this case, Iran and North Korea are publicly and openly and in every circumstance in war with Ukraine. It's not only Russo-Ukrainian war, it's Russo-North Korean, Iranian, Ukrainian war. And connected to this topic, Russia is relying more and more on foreign manpower in their armies because, I mean, Russians, they're having issues with recruiting from their own homelands. Otherwise, they wouldn't rely on foreign powers, foreign manpower. And in this picture, we can actually see the different ethnicities fighting in the Russian army. There's also a lot of, I almost said African Americans, because they're not African Americans. They're, sorry, I cannot, I don't know what YouTube accepts at this time, but South Korea has announced it will send direct military aid to Ukraine if North Korean troops are seen on the front line. So this is a red line just set by South Korea if they're seen on the front line. Because right now we have reports that these 10,000 North Korean troops are being formed into one great unit and they're right now stationed in training areas in Far East, Russia's Far East Siberian area. Now South Korea's red line goes that if these troops are seen on the front line, they will send direct military aid to Ukraine. Now, this even more illustrates the point that yes, this conflict right now is fought in Ukraine, but the fighters are Russia directly in Ukraine, North Korea directly in Ukraine, and South Korea on the side of Ukraine will be directly in Ukraine because they said they will send military aid directly. So even more to open up that sometimes people comment that, oh, World War III is coming. It is here. This is it. This is it. I mean, we have an image in our heads that World War III is this massive bang and everybody dying all at once. This is it. How it is right now. One war, three conflicts. The de-escalation policy of Ukraine's allies is creating everything needed for World War III. North Korea mobilized 1.4 million young people in just 1 week. They're waiters. Now, yeah, this is North Korean internal information and their numbers. I mean, they definitely did not mobilize 1.4 million. It's just a propaganda. But they do have one of the largest, if not the, one of the largest standing armies in the world. It doesn't matter, these soldiers are starved and cannot really fight. The sheer manpower is massive. So this, what I take away from this is the de-escalation policy. In this sense, right now in this war, there is nowhere to de-escalate anymore. Russia is all in. Where are you going to de-escalate this? You are in this boxing match. Imagine two fighters, one of them is like, Mike Tyson, and the other one is, whoa, let's talk about it. No, the rules of the match is you play, you fight until a knockout, until a victory or loss. You cannot talk in the boxing match anymore. Then you have to surrender and then you can talk. You're already in the boxing match. You fight. The de-escalation policy is trying to talk in an active boxing match. Doesn't make any sense. Ukraine is at war with three countries, Russia, Iran and North Korea. And this is said by Ukrainian President Zelensky. Nobody declares war anymore nowadays, as I said, but Zelensky is not going to play around with, we don't know what's going to happen yet. This is the reality. Ukraine is at war with three countries in the world right now. And connected to all of this new information, all of this escalation by the axis of evil, we have reports like that from the West, unfortunately. France will not fulfill its promise of 3 billion in aid to Ukraine in 2024, according to the defense minister Sébastien Lecornu. He stated, At the beginning of 2024, there was a political decision that this aid could reach 3 billion. In reality, it will be over 2 billion, but not 3 billion. And I want to say two things. First of all, thank you to the French government, thank you to the French people for sending aid to Ukraine. 2 billion is massive amounts. Estonia could never send this much. But the second point would be that it saddens me to see that the West is sleeping. This is a war not only on Ukraine, but on the collective West and their rules-based order of the world, which you and I, both as citizens of the West, are gaining from. You like democracy? Well, it is there because the democratic powers enforcing their rules on the world's oceans. America, I'm talking about America. If Russia and China and North Korea and Iran are able to prove to the rest of the countries in the world that they can do what they want, they can not play according to these American rules and the Western democratic rules, more countries will join their alliance, more countries will want to change that for their own goals. It is in every one last Western country's interest to force the axes of evil back into their holes. If you don't do that, we can say bye-bye to the benefits we have right now in the West. Now I'll read you a thread from Mikhail Khodorkovsky, and I really like the guy. I mean, he was a Russian oligarch, and now he's a very strong opposition to Putin in the West. Complete collapse of law and order. Putin was already recruiting convicts to fight in his war in Ukraine. Now he's expanded that to anyone facing charges. Both short and long-term consequences of this will be catastrophic. A closer look. Putin, yes, he signed a decree according to which almost anybody with almost any charges will have these charges dropped immediately from the government if the guy is going to fight in Ukraine. Putin is pretty much saying the side effect of this is in Russia, you can murder people now, but the price of this is you have to go and fight in Ukraine after. You will not go to jail, nothing will happen to you, you just have to go to war. So there are people who now can take risks. For example, let's talk about robbing banks. You're a bank robber. The gain from robbing a bank could be $10 million. The loss of it would be a life in prison. If you don't get caught, you get $10 million. Now, the gain is $10 million, but the loss would be going to Ukraine and fighting there and all charges be dropped, and if you survive you can come back and do whatever you want. So there are a lot of people in the world and in Russia where there's not that much money who are ready to take the risk now because they know they will never go to prison. They can go to Ukraine. They can murder, they can steal, they can loot and do everything they want because they always have a way out, and that's war. And in there they can continue doing what they do anyway. So in Russia this pretty much legalizes in a way, with a loop, all criminalities. Because you always have a way out. You will never end up in prison because you can go and live your way of life like you would live in Russia, only at the front, because they do the same things there. As of this month, anybody charged with crime in Russia can sign a contract with the defense ministry in exchange for charges being dropped under a law signed by Putin last Wednesday. What does this mean? In the short term, it means a Russian army is going to get numbers boosts. Convicts were already being sent to the front, so given the choice between going to war and going to war with criminal record, people will tend to choose the former. But since convicts were already being recruited, all this move does is speed up the process. Sure, it cuts out the red tape of actually holding a trial and filling out paperwork, but the end result is the same. Vaisya committed a crime and now Vaisya is going to war, and tomorrow Vaisya is coming back from the war, no charges, but a criminal. The more serious consequences of this incredibly stupid move by the regime will mostly be felt by Russians, because now effectively all crimes carry the same sentence. Any charge from murder to unsanctioned protest will disappear if the suspect agrees to mobilize. Society will react to this kind of change in the policy. There is going to be a massive spike in criminal activity in Russia. Because why do I think this? Well, Western prisons and Russian prisons do not compare. The Russian prisons are a hellhole. You don't come out of there as a normal guy. They are one of the worst prisons in the world. Now that the charges will be not to go to prison anymore, a lot more people will take the chances of robbing and looting because they always have a way out. that will spike the criminal activities in Russia. Many folds, I would think. My friends, I'm sure you all see this video already, but I haven't reported on this, and it's beautiful. This is a Ukrainian Baba Yaga drone carrying a triangle. What is this triangle? I'm glad you asked. This is a dragon's teeth. It's very heavy, but this is a heavy-duty drone. And are they carrying it to drop on Russian soldiers' heads? No, my friends. I already reported on this story. It is like 2 weeks old, but still, it is so beautiful. Let's see, I'm just gonna remind you guys, this was the story. Suddenly, dragon's teeth appear in Russian rear areas in Kursk, and Russian soldiers fleeing from FPV drones 150 kilometers per hour, and it's pitch black dark. There's suddenly a roadblock, and like up to 40, this comes from the Russian, up to 40 guys died because of one by one smashing into these dragon's teeth. This is one of the most genius, almost non-military sabotage you can do. It's crazy genius. Now, my friends, a Russian reporter, Kyiv, talks about slow progress in the DPR due to the worsening autumn weather. And I'll read you 5 points he gives to us. Again, Russian sources are good to use in this sense on the front because they have no incentive to lie, because mostly they come from simple Russian soldiers who don't really want to die. So if Russian Ministry of Defense has any kind of propaganda or narratives they want to push, the simple soldier who is about to die on the front speaks the truth. The weather in the Donetsk front, all other things being equal, favors defense rather than offense. However, the fighting does not stop, and our forces continue to attack daily using carefully honed small group tactic. Using a carefully two factors are at play. I love how he said it's like carefully rehearsed and planned small groups tactic. What he means is like Russian troops on motorcycles and electric scooters and golf cars. The main one is the colossal shortage of personnel. Again, a Russian soldier on the front reports about the massive shortage of personnel in the Russian army. Why would he lie about this? It's a question for you and me. Oh, some people say, oh, why you believe in the Russian sources? Yeah, but let's go through. Why would a soldier who's about to die tomorrow, I mean, this is one is a reporter, but the soldiers say that also. Who's about to die tomorrow, why would he say it's a massive shortage of personnel? I don't think he's lying. Because speaking the truth in this sense benefits him. So yeah, the Russian army is in a massive shortage of personnel. Believe it or not. Who would have guessed that Russia, or yeah, Russia has a shortage of personnel? Number two, the task of dispersing and stealthily advancing to enemy positions under the conditions of the dominance in drones. In each situation, the number of assault troops varies, but increasingly, the practice now is to work in pairs. Two advance to a point where they can secure a position. Then a new pair or trio moves up step by step. So yeah, that's what they do. Two guys in electric scooters or motorcycle go to a point, secure the positions. If they didn't die, that means another one can go. If they did die, then the artillery starts to work and they try again tomorrow. First point secured, another point secured, another point. That's how they actually take 10 meters at the time. That's how the slow progress is. Very slow, but it's consistent. And with huge losses, because those two will die at some point. Number three, losses are significant, including on the Pokrovsk section of the front. I am not at liberty to disclose the details to avoid being accused of discreditation. Yes, the discrediting the army paragraph that Putin has used for almost 2 years in Russia. Almost everybody talking about war in every sense, they can be put to prison because discrediting of the army. That's how the Russian authorities use that law, because you cannot talk about the army because you don't know what you're talking about. And if you do, you're discrediting the army. Two problems that often seem unsolvable so far are the enemy superiority in UAVs, including FPV drones, and the presence of cannibals among some commanders and staff officers of Lao army units. Now, he reports again, why would he lie that Ukrainians in some areas hold a significant UAV superiority to the Russians? Number five, Selidove. Near Selidove, from the north and south, we continue attempts to encircle the city. Yesterday, under extremely difficult conditions, despite everything, we finally captured and secured a small section of the grey zone on the northern front. The Ukrainian forces pulled back, but hindered us from holding the position. We managed to secure it. And now, my friends, I haven't actually reported on this, but let's put it to sheer numbers. The Russian Federation spends on the war in Ukraine every week more than 80% of its regions spend in a year, reports the Moscow Times. According to the publication, in 2025, Russia plans a military budget at the level of 13.2 trillion rubles, approximately $95.4 billion. So that would be what, like 1/7 or 1/6 of United States military spending? 1/8 even. This means that the daily cost of the war will be 38 billion rubles, or about 275 million United States dollars. One day for the Russian military occupying Ukraine, 275 million USD dollars. That's a hefty price for a country like Russia. Now, my friends, I want to do my favorite part of the video, which is butchering Buy Me a Coffee monthly members. Finally, I get to do it. If you want to become a member and support the channel, I'll be butchering your name to oblivion and back. Soul 184, Dodd Berkan, Jeff Pateman, Stanley Patrick Hai, Sam Spenker Peters, George A. Clarke. Thank you to these butchered names for being the foundation of this channel. I do enjoy it. It makes me feel good at the start of the day to butcher these names. Until my next video, my friends, which will be on Monday. So be sure to be back. Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.